Hi everyone, this is part 2 of the week 5 overview. I apologize, I ran out of time on the first video. So we were talking about decision-making processes and that how a group makes decisions affects perceptions of trust, respect, and transparency. And again, I was saying there are a number of different systems for making decisions, and all forms have their place, but two in particular that we should be considering as social workers engaging in community practice are consensus. And consensus is the development of the sense of the group through discussion and negotiation. So when we're talking about consensus, no decision is made without all participants agreeing. And as we might imagine, this can be a slow process to reach a consensus, but when a decision is made, everyone is in accord. It can, however, be a bit difficult to use with large groups for what I think are obvious reasons, because you're not always going to have everyone in agreement. And then the second form that should be considered as social workers engaging in community practice is that of democracy. So the group votes on decisions, right? We're all familiar with that. There may be winners and losers, but with large groups, that's sometimes going to be inevitable. So if you're working with a smaller group, consensus is something that may be able to work. And if you're working with a larger group, you're more likely going to adopt the democratic approach to reach decisions. So leadership, organization, and group facilitation. In community work, you may often find yourself as the leader or the facilitator of the groups. And leadership is one of the most studied domains in all of the social sciences, right? So what makes a good leader? I mean, I think we see things popping up in the news all the time about that as well, or on social media. And so what makes a good leader? And it depends on the model you use, but there are a few skills that show up sort of across different models. So first is the ability to motivate. So this means knowing or learning what motivates people to act. And some models have suggested that we look to Maslow for guidance on that, right? Because if you think about basic needs and hierarchies of needs, that can help us to understand, and where an individual or community's needs are can help us to understand how individuals or that community may be motivated to act. A second key skill is the ability to coach. And in coaching, there are at least two elements present. There's the ability to educate about tasks and the ability to guide participants, and both of those are critically important. I would say, going back to my discussion again of working in a senior apartment building, in some ways I was sort of coaching the residents there, educating them about what a resident council could be, and then sort of guiding them in the creation of that. Third, you also have to have the ability to manage conflict, right? Anytime we're dealing with groups or communities, we are inevitably going to have usually some type of conflict. So the ability to manage that. And again, in my example of the senior apartment building, we certainly had conflict both between residents, but also between residents and management. So there was a lot of sort of facilitation around negotiating some of those conflicts. Fourth, the ability to problem solve. I think your assignment 3, you're going to be starting to think through some of these interventions and ways to solve problems. But problems can also arise, in the course of a meeting, or being able to sort of think on your feet and work towards solutions rather than adding fuel to the conflicts that exist. And finally, the ability to read people, right, to sort of develop emotional competence. And again, that's sort of where some of our more clinical or micro-level social work skills come in. So in some of our overviews earlier in the semester, we talked about some of the necessary research skills needed in community work. In the next couple of weeks, we're also going to talk about advocacy and management. But there are also other skills necessary for good community practice, and we have sort of a lengthy list here of skills commonly used. Again, the organization is seen as a client, budgeting and financial management, the ability to work with a board of directors, resource development, right, raising funding for a program, program evaluation, are programs effective, organizational design, development, assessment, and diagnosis. And this goes on and on. So there's a tremendous list of skills that are important in community practice, and it doesn't mean that you're engaged using all of these at the same time, but these are skills that may be important. So that is a brief sort of overview of community practice skills. I'd like to now review the assignments for the week. So our objectives are to begin to apply some of our micro-practice skills necessary for community practice, to understand the importance of cultural competence in community work, to apply group social work skills necessary for community practice, and to examine the importance of leadership, which we just reviewed some aspects of those. Again, for your required readings this week, you will be reading a number of excerpts or chapters from University of Kansas Community Toolbox. And these readings will deal with leadership characteristics and actions. Again, there are also a number of supplemental readings. And you actually also have 2 videos here that you will be watching this week. And I believe the link to the second one, the link to the second one is broken. I will post an alternative link for this second film. But the first film is called Amina, the Interrupters, and the second is Cesar Chavez, The Fight in the Fields, Cesar Chavez and the Farm Workers Movement. These are both documentaries, and you will need to talk about one of these in one of the discussion posts, and we'll get to that in a minute. All right, so discussion post. The first discussion post is what makes a good community leader. So you are going to watch one of these 2 documentaries that I mentioned, and then in your initial post you're going to consider, and both of these documentaries deal with community organizers, so you're going to consider the community organizer identified in the video, and you're going to provide a list of no less than 5 characteristics of the community activist discussed in the film. And in your list, you don't want to just name the characteristics, but you want to provide specific examples and descriptions of each characteristic. When did you see them display this characteristic? How did you see them display this characteristic? Was it effective? How did they use it? And then you're going to describe in your own words why you think these particular skills are so important. And if there are some skills that you didn't see used that you think might have made the organizer more effective, what might they be? Make sure you include the name of the video you watched and the title of your post. And also, in your response, you should reference at least 2 of the course readings for this week in your initial post. So that'll be due Thursday, and then you will be asked to respond to at least 2 of your classmates, in which you'll be thinking about your classmates' answers, acknowledging whether you agree or disagree with their responses and why or why not, and that will be due Sunday. Any questions about that, please feel free to email me or post in the Ask the Instructor forum. And the second discussion post involves choosing a theoretical model for community intervention, and this is going to be a piece of your next written assignment 3 that you're doing in your dyad. So this will help you along with that process. So this is meant to get you thinking about the theoretical model that you and your dyad partner are going to use to guide your intervention plan in assignment 3. In your initial post, you're going to draw on the course readings from week 4 on community practice models and changing communities, as well as the important characteristics of community practice models that you came up with in last week's discussion forum. Based on those resources, you're going to complete each of these 2 parts in your initial post. You want to first identify and describe the theoretical model that you would like to use in your intervention plan for the community that you and your dyad partner are using in your assignments. This can be one of the theoretical models identified in the course readings for week 4, or your own idea for a theoretical model built on important characteristics that you have identified. If you do decide to create your own theoretical model, remember that it must be related to community practice. So remember, the community is our client in this case, so you don't want to propose a theoretical model that's aimed at individual change necessarily, or on the micro level. It should be related to community practice. Whether you're using one of the theoretical models from the readings or developing your own, you must provide citations to the course resources to sort of support your decision to use the model you're using. So describe your rationale for choosing this theoretical model. What are the strengths of using this model with your community? What are the limitations of using this model with your community? Excuse me. Okay, so, and for this post, you may consult with your dyad partner, but you should each write your own initial post, and the theoretical model that you identify should be different than your partner's. Again, that's due Thursday, and you'll respond to at least 2 classmates by Sunday. Make sure you adhere to the length requirements and the grading rubric. I will also be posting an additional video related to selecting a theoretical model. I know that sometimes if that's something that you don't have experience with, it can seem a little abstract and perhaps confusing. So I will post a separate video that should hopefully help you with this piece of the assignment as well, recapping some of the things that were noted back in week 4 that I didn't focus on as heavily in my presentation at that time, but think the time is, it's better to do it while you're actually doing this assignment. So I will do that for you. All right, and then finally, remember assignment 3, your community needs assessment and service plan. That is the next phase of your dyad or group of 3 project. That is due in week 6. I have also posted a link, or I'm sorry, I've also posted a video going over the requirements for that assignment so that you all can start working on it sooner rather than later. That is it for this week. If anyone has any questions whatsoever about anything, please feel free to email me or post in the Ask the Instructor forum. And I look forward to reading everyone's assignments this week. Have a great week, everybody.